Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down we're breaking down Invincible Season 2, Episode 3, baby. It's now out, and we have a lot to talk about when it comes to aliens. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking down all Easter eggs, comic book connections, and things you might have missed. Also, I forgot to ask people for thumbs up last week, so this week I'm going to need you to click the thumbs up and then click it again to make up for the twice. Is that right? Either way, thanks for clicking this. Now let's get into the brand new episode.
Dad?
Now we begin with Debbie dropping Mark off at university, which is where he moved to in the comics. A lot of this episode takes place during issue 0, which actually happens after issue 22. Keep up, yeah? What it was, right, was that Invincible had been running for about 2 years, and the readership was slowly starting to pick up, so what they did is basically release this comic that filled in a lot of the backstory of what had happened. It had Mark basically talking to Amber and recapping all the story of what had happened so far. In the end, we had the pair kissing, which then took us directly into issue 23. Just like how they kinda cut away for the sex moments in this, they then also used that to transition into Alan the Alien. This led us into getting the story we have, which takes up the majority of this episode. Now you might remember last week that Principal Winslow said it was his last year, and people assumed that he was retiring. What's really going on though is that he's now the dean of the university, though at the moment he hasn't been reintroduced yet. Now this entire scene's very heartbreaking for Debbie, as she's lost the family she's been building for the last 20 years. Nolan left, and we see that he's moved on somewhere else, and that Mark's now left to go off and study away from home. One thing that I absolutely love about the series, though, is how much it's fleshed out what's going on with Debbie. In the comics, she was often always just off in the background, whereas here they give her way more character development. All the stuff last week with the house, that's completely new for the show, as is the support group that we see her going to. That kind of reminds me a lot of the one from Avengers Endgame, in which Cap met with people that were affected by the snap. Now the card for the group, that has a number on the back of it, but the front, it also gave some clues too. This was actually the Morse code for SOS, with the group also being called that too. Now as we learn, this massively helped out Olga, and she was someone that lost her superhero husband, but due to the circumstances, Debbie isn't welcomed in. Kinda heartbreaking that she gets blamed for it all, even though she didn't really have anything to do with it. On the phone we hear,
"Sorry, no last names, Debbie, but Olga told me about you."
Which is later backed up by
"First names only."
It's clearly been set up like this in case there's issues from heroes and villains' loved ones coming face to face. I'm guessing that even the supervillains like Nolan would have someone that they cared about that might need support in a situation like this. Now from here we cut to Mark readying his room, and the first thing he does is hang up a poster. This is of his childhood hero Science Dog, who in the comics was called Science Dog. The poster first showed up during issue 2, with it being a change for the series to be a Doctor Strange parody. Bring that over from across his home, we get someone masquerading as him later in the episode. Now Zane's dog has the same outfit as Strange, and his change-up was done for a specific reason. Discussing it last year, Robert Kirkman said it was down to the property rights, so I'm guessing we've got some legal weagle wobbly stuff. Interestingly, Science Dog was also created by Kirkman, with him even getting his own spin-off comic at one point. Now about their dawn, we also have different parodies, including Magnum PI, but they've got the pie symbol on the end of the logo. We also have Lady Yaya instead of Lady Gaga, and it just helps to keep things off in a slightly different universe. Now William's side is much cleaner, and he explains how they use a sock on the door to signal when the room's occupied. We also see Mark's brought across his toys.
They're collectibles.
Sorry mate, and amongst these we can catch Seance Dog and a Shuma Gorath parody. Mark later ends up chucking Seance Dog in the trash, but he has a change of heart because he's not ready to let go yet. Kinda wish I'd been told that when I was younger, because I threw away all my stuff as soon as I hit 14. Spent the last 10 years trying to buy them all back, except this time they're now 5 times the price. Yay! So sad, just seeing the little lad in the bin, and yeah, come here mate, I'll never let go. In the comics, this story started off in issue 25, which is when we open with Mark down a comic book store. The guy behind the desk, he kept making fun of Science Dog and how crap the comic run was on the whole. Mark said he'd been buying them forever though, and in the end didn't really want to break up his run. It was about him being unable to let go, but here I think it's way more impactful by using the figure. Seance Dog was the first character that was a hero to him, and in many ways this reflected his father. I don't think it's any coincidence that Seon's dogs used a form to connect with his dad, and it's a really clever way to bring this whole thing together. Now, after seeing a sock on the door, we then cut to Amber's room, and I think that X poster might be a reference to Ed Sheeran. The pair start getting it on, with Seon's dog falling to the ground, which maybe shows the man's childhood's about to leave him behind. At this point, Amber says,
"Wait, you don't have, like, super sperm or something, do you?"
Which might be a nod to the Kevin Smith talk about Superman. Guy brought up how he'd really have to practice safety and potentially wear a kryptonite condom when he was going in the lowest lane. If your girl's in for the kryptonite, though, she knows what to do, and we end up giving the pair some privacy. We then get this voiceover.
And so, dear audience, perhaps it's time to give Amber and Mark some privacy.
Which riffs on the comic in which we transition Alan with the text block saying, and so, dear readers, we turn our attentions elsewhere to give young Mark Grayson and Amber Bennett some privacy. From here we get what's basically the double-page spread from issue 23, in which we recount what happened with the Unopens. They were basically a peaceful world that had achieved harmony with nature, but the Viltrumites ended up invading the planet and destroying most of the people there. This is the tactic that the Viltrumites used to use when they were superior in numbers, as they couldn't be outmatched by any forces in the galaxy. However, as they spread out and conquered other worlds, their forces grew too thin, and thus they changed tactics. Eventually, what they do is what we saw with Nolan, where he went to a planet and pretended to be its protector. Eventually, they'd weaken their forces, and this would usher in the Viltrumite invasion. Now, the show slightly changes things up, as they have the Unopens rebelling by using their weapons. In the comics, they just fled into the stars, and then started to experiment on their young. The ship leaving the planet looks exactly the same, and they've pulled across these elements brilliantly to tell Alan's backstory. At this point, they were invited into the coalition of planets, which was set up to tackle a Viltrumite threat. Here we meet their leader Thetis for the first time, who's voiced by none other than Peter Cullen.
The Viltrumite campaign has become the scourge of the galaxy.
If you recognize his voice, it's because he provided Optimus Primes, and Thetis is a major character that pops up throughout the comics. Those who read it know he's got a little secret, and I can't wait to see how it's handled in the show. Next to him, we also see a character that looks like Battle Beast, and they may end up tying his species into the coalition early on in the show. Now, for years, the Unopens tried several ways to genetically improve their species to fight the Viltrumites, but many were born disfigured. That was until your boy Alan the Alien. They sort of riff on the helmet Wolverine had when he was Weapon X, with there being a big red visor over the front of the metal structure. This was a panel that appeared in the comics too, with the following shots also being similar as well. That included Alan fighting a giant beast and also being laid out flat on his back after he got beaten. No matter what happened, Alan couldn't beat a Viltrumite, and instead he was made as a planetary evaluation officer. As we learned in Season 1, he travelled out to Earth and had even fought Nolan when visiting our planet. We see this moment playing out, and that happens in a montage foreshadowing Omni-Man's big return at the end. Now, as we know, this was all one big mistake, and he was meant to go to Urath, but this helped him come across Mark. Mark's obviously someone who can help combat the Viltrumite threat, and now we're getting breadcrumbs for the way the story's gonna go. Also, love how they changed the title card, and this is also what they did with Adam Eve, which was such a cool thing in her special. Now, his journey back to his headquarters is built off the back of the comics, but they change up what happens with his girlfriend General Talia. In the comics, she was more just a scantily clad alien, whereas here she's a high-ranking member of the military. If you think her uniform looks familiar, then that's because it's based off the ones from Star Trek The Next Generation. There were a couple of panels where Alan ended up saving a crew who were designed to look like Picard and Co., which Talia is also a member of. From here we go to the council, with Alan discussing Mark and how he went against his father. This whole scene is beat for beat in the source material, with it being extremely important to the overall arc. Thetis also mentions the Great Purge, which was the battle on Viltrum in which only the strong survived. This actually wiped out half their population, which in the end led to their numbers being so weak. For years they've been searching for someone like Mark who can help tear open the Viltrumite's armor. If you know what's going on with Thetis, then you'll also be aware of why his war against Viltrum is so important. Again, I promised Amazon I wouldn't be doing any future spoilers, but there's a very important thing that happens with the character. Talia says,
Also, why are they breeding with other races? I thought Viltrumites believed in racial purity.
and again, this is because their numbers are so low. They realize they'd have to bolster them up by having kids, which is something that happened when they infiltrate a planet. Viltrumites, of course, live for thousands and thousands of years, so having kids to carry on their legacy is not always on their mind. Thus, they didn't have new thinkers come in and question what they were doing, and thus you didn't get wokeness, mate. You didn't get wokeness from the new generation who's always bloody rattling about woke, aren't they? Now, Theta suspects that someone's a mole, and I'm joking, by the way. Now, Theta suspects that someone's a mole, and we see firsthand that this is the case. Someone's been feeding the Viltrumites info, which leads to the attack later on with Alan. Now, at this point, he returns home, which in the comics is when we saw Talia. Alan kinda went back and forth on having sex with her because his species was sworn to only use breeding factories. I don't know if it's because they saw Talia pressing him into it that they thought it might be problematic, so they just skip over it and then cut away. In the comics, we cut to the curtain, which we saw up in the back when he entered the room. The narrator then talked about returning to Mark, which is when we awkwardly cut back to settle on the curtain. From here, we then went to a satellite, which is where Talia and Alan went to in the source material. Alan's eating worms, whereas Talia has a Krang-type creature that eats Alan's food like how it does in the comics. At this point, the Viltrumites attack, which leads to them smashing him like he's the like button. They do kind of change up the members of the team, but they keep the one guy that I believe is Lucan. The woman is totally different in the book, but she has appeared in the series before. When we watched the Purge playing out, you could catch her amongst the soldiers, and she's very, very mean looking with a blade at the end of her hair. This is actually a character called Thula, who appears much later on in the comics, but clearly they brought her in here to kind of add a noticeable thing for readers to really kind of thorn over. Now they're here to interrogate Alan to find out what's happened with Nolan, as abandoning your post is against the Viltrumite way. Refusing to answer, they kick the crap out of him in a scene that's just as brutal here as it is in the comics. They cut off his arm, smack out his eye, and he gets put under medical care. Cut to Talia crying in the hospital, at which point she's comforted by Thetis. Now they change things up as we see Thetis turning off his life support, which is a completely new thing purely for the show. In the comics he just said this is the beginning of the end, whereas here he asks for forgiveness. I have no idea what they're doing with this, and it's nice to get a curveball for the way they're going to take things. He could suspect that it's Alan, or he might be even playing 4D chess to get to the bottom of it, as doing this might bring out the mole. Either way, let me know your thoughts below, and I actually thought that might be the end of the entry. We even get credits, then starting up, but at this point we then cut back to Earth. Rexplode enters, making things awkward, and at this point the pair have an argument. In the end, she says she relates with the Immortal because he's died as many times as she has. Really helps to flesh his story out, and it's built off the back of a conversation Immortal has in the comics. There he talked about how he'd finally met someone who'd made him feel like it was worth sticking around. You have to see with the Immortal that he's watched everyone he ever loves die, so he has a tough time sticking in one place. Throughout his life, he's lived as several other people, and at one point was even Abraham Lincoln. After he was killed, he came back and laid low, but decided to become a superhero when the Dawn of Them first started out. Normally at this point, he would have left the life behind, but Kate's made him feel like he should still stick around. Now Rexplode just isn't able to understand, and Kate's looking for someone more mature. At this point, Shapesmith enters and just weirds everyone out, and he's kind of like, hello fellow humans. I love all the scenes where he's trying to fit in though, and as we know, the man's of course a Martian. Now from here we cut to Rudy in a scene that's very reminiscent of Iron Man 3. In that we saw a map of Killian's brain, whereas here he's trying to map his out. Here he wants to determine why he's so afraid, and realizes that he's got something holding him back. Man just wants to be with Monster Girl, and at this point he then asks her out.
I'm getting the word nonce.
Her looking young is also why he chose to clone Rex and grow to 14 so the pair could at least look like they're the same age. They are of course older mentally, but the comics did stuff differently, with Amanda saying she didn't really like him because he looked like a kid. That happened during issue 36, with then Rudy asking her out after a big battle. Now from here we cut across to the spouses of the superhero, which is where we see a talk being given by Theo. Voiced by Daveed Diggs, he becomes a big character in the episode that shows how humanity would react to Debbie if they knew. Outside we see his Mark's not really been replying, and he's left the nest, and so she now just feels alone. She kind of finds a lot of commonality in Theo, and together the pair go out to a bar. This takes her mind off her son being gone, and we see as she then deletes her message. Elsewhere we see Rudy and Amanda getting closer as they line up to go and check out a movie. The posters in the back riff on Dracula and the Wolfman, and they ask for tickets to Midnight Slaughter. In the comics it was called Machine Gun Slaughter, with a scene playing off the opening of issue 37. Ironically, the guy that offered them tickets to see Science Dog, and I was thinking they might go with Seance Dog. However, the guy's in the episode a lot, so I can understand why they were like, maybe let's not have him as every single reference. Now, how they got around it there is that Rudy noticed someone wearing a Knicks jacket, and he told the guy that this was his dad. He then went over and said something about how the Knicks are the best team, but the guy selling the tickets, he's disagreeing with that fact, let's say. So the dude shouted back that he was telling the truth, and thus Rudy and Amanda were able to go in. Also, I don't know anything about the Knicks. Disclaimer, guys. Don't know anything about them. So if they're not the best, yeah, make sure you drop it in the comments. Fill those comments up with lots of interactions and engagement. Now in the show, Amanda shows she's used to this kind of thing and gets an adult to say that she's their parent. From here, they then head out to Bergamot, and I was kind of hoping that we'd see Eve's dad here. Alas, we don't, but Rudy gets to experience new things, as man's really never had a life outside his tank. Out of the bar, Theo drops the name Alana, who we met in episode 1 of season 1. Didn't exactly stick around, and she was known as the Green Ghost. She was a photographer who, after ingesting an amulet, became a character based on the Green Lantern. In the comics, they were originally a man, but I like the change up here so they can go down this route. Theo and Debbie are very much opposites in every way, with the former not having to deal with the secrets that the latter did. Across at the university, we also see Mark dealing with his own issues too, as William brings up how much he misses Rick. This was a character that was changed into a Reaniman during the D.A. Sinclair arc that Cecil has since been trying to fix. At this point, we get a knock at the door, which is when we then see Seance Dog. Yeah, it's a slight change up from the comics, as it happened in that while Mark was still at home. It was Debbie who ended up opening up the door, and at this point it then led into a fight. Makes sense that Mark takes it away from his classmates here, whereas originally he decided to just start fighting him. They fly because in the comics, Eve explains to Mark that humans never actually tend to look up. At one point they change into their costumes at school, and none of the humans see them because they are smaller and more insignificant. Sorry guys. Now Amber's someone who actually does look up though, which makes Mark believe that she's special and will understand his life. Now both the comic and show, Mark questions the dog why he's like this, and the facade clearly doesn't hold up. Both have the reveal that it's an insect, with the comic being something that has him using a costume. He says,
"The journey to your world has taken me most of my life."
And in the source material, we learn how short this is. Most of the bugs, they only live for 9 months, which explains how Omni-Man became their leader. They don't even live long enough to remember a time when he wasn't, and thus he's managed to rise up in society. Desperate to reconnect with Mark, he sent out this messenger to help bring him to him. William kind of peer pressures him into it, and we get a scene in which he informs Cecil that he's leaving. In the show, they really play up the tension, and I feel like him further turning his back on Cecil's orders gonna drive a wedge between them. I get the feeling the show is gonna have Cecil trying to take down Mark because he believes that he could end up becoming his father. He also ends up reaching out to Amber, which is a bit impersonal because he calls her from the ship. In the comic, he went to her room, whereas here he just calls her, but he tells her that he loves her.
I love you.
Guessing that the connection dropped, and hey, young love's tough. Now, from here we get a 6-day journey across space in which Mark slumps about in the chair. This perfectly mimics what's in the comic, with us lulling us into a false sense of security. That's why it felt so impactful with what we got in the end, with the reveal of Nolan coming straight out the blue. Yeah, though they used that to culminate the Debbie story in which she admits to Theo that her husband was Omni-Man. Even though she's breaking down, Theo doesn't show any sympathy and warns her that the group might turn against her. It's such a brutal way to take things, and I was genuinely thinking he might say it's not her fault, but nope, man's colder than Omni-Man calling her a pet.
I do love your mother, but she's more like a pet to me.
At this point, she looks up to the stars, and this is where Omni-Man of course headed into. It's also where Mark's now gone to, and we see as he's reunited with his father. Just like the comics, he's taken through the planet before coming face to face with his dad. Holding out his hand, he then says the exact same lines that he does in the comics.
Hello, son. It's been a while.
This brings the entry to a close for real now, and as many of you know, I got to talk to co-showrunner, executive producer and writer Simon Racioppa about this character change. The main reason I fell in love with Invincible in the first place is the arcs that the characters go on, and it starts off as quite a simple story of like a hero origin story, and then it just... the breakneck twists in it, pun intended, are absolutely insane, but then you sort of start to feel like side with the villains as well, which obviously includes Omni-Man, and you have an episode where obviously Mark goes to meet his father again. When you're creating these characters, do you feel sympathetic for them, or in the back of your mind are you thinking, oh, this guy's terrible but he's great to write for?
Well, so I mean, I'm sure you've heard this term before, but like nobody thinks they're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Characters don't. I mean, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, Omni-Man thinks he's doing his duty to his people. Like he's a sleeper agent. We've had sleeper agents in real world history, right? That's happened. People have done terrible things in the cause of for their nation, throughout history and throughout wars. So Omni-Man doesn't think he's a monster. He starts to question whether he is, I think, going forwards. But when he's doing the actions, like initially he thinks this is what he has to do. This is his duty. So we try to treat things realistically that way. Are there psychopaths? Are there crazy people? Yes, obviously. But, for most of our characters, they're doing what they think is right or what they have to do. So that's where we start anyway with most of our villains. Even Angstrom Levy, like he has an idea of what he's trying to do, and he has a reason for doing it. He's not just an insane person being insane.
Yeah, I love that answer. In the end, that closes out the entry, and it was another real kind of analysis of the wake of Nolan's destruction. We talked about before how I think this is very much like a superhero version of a parent's divorce, in which you go and see your dad's off doing his own thing. Seeing what Debbie went through reminded me a lot of my own parents' one. It was just taken to the extreme with it being about Omni-Man. Still though, there's a lot of complexities here, with Mark's love for his childhood toys even being used to manipulate him. Omni-Man would of course know about his son's love for it, and yeah, just using that as a way to bring him to the planet. Cold-hearted guy. He knows that he probably wouldn't have come any other way, and this whole way to get him back, it's just one big manipulation scheme. It's kind of like when your parents get divorced and they try and bribe you with toys, and I just was blown away at the extra layers to it. It adds a wealth of subtext to what's going on, and in the end this was a really character-driven episode that took things in so many interesting directions. I also loved the Al and the Alien insert, which on first watch just came out of nowhere. Still though, it was integrated into the episode so well, and I hope you've enjoyed our trek through the show. Obviously, please leave all your comments below, and huge thank you for checking out the video. That thumbs up is always massively appreciated, and if you want to support the channel as a member of the Spoiler Society, then please click the join button. You get early access to videos every week, and it goes such a long way to helping us out. You want to get some heavy spoilers merch, we've also got our t-shirt line located below the video that will let you pick up all kinds of tops like our Theory Time one, House of Dragons stuff, Marvel tees and a lot more. We drop new designs on there all the time too, so definitely keep an eye out for them, and thank you if you bought one. Now if you want something else to watch, we've got another video on screen right now, so definitely head over there right after this. By the way, huge thank you for checking out the video. I've been your host Paul, and I hope to see you next week. Take care, peace.